CNBC-TV18.
The aviation sector is among the worst hit by the coronavirus pandemic and the ensuing travel bans across the world. According to the CRISIL Infrastructure Advisory, the domestic aviation sector is staring at a revenue loss of around 25,000 crore rupees during the current financial year. CRISIL expects airlines to incur a revenue loss of around 17,000 crore rupees, while airport operators are looking at 5,000 to 5,500 crore rupees as an hit. CRISIL has pegged revenue losses for airport retailers at between 1,700 to 1,800 crore rupees. Now, these losses could also increase if travel restrictions last longer. CRISIL adds that it may take 6 to 8 quarters for the sector to reach pre-COVID-19 levels. Well, joining me now to outline the roadmap for the aviation sector is the Civil Aviation Minister, Mr. Hardeep Puri. Mr. Puri, many thanks for joining us here on CNBC TV18. Sir, I would like to delve a little deeper into the plan as far as the calibrated reopening of the transportation sector is concerned. Yesterday, in your conversation with my colleague Maria, you suggested that the government is looking at a gradual and a calibrated reopening. Now, can you explain to us what that means? Are we likely to expect a resumption of at least domestic services in green zones starting the 17th of this month, or will it take longer?
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me on your show. Your question is very precise. You are referring to the reopening of the transportation sector. You are not talking about civil aviation alone, and that is my first submission to you. Civil aviation cannot be opened up in isolation. We have a large economy. The civil aviation sector is the third largest domestic civil aviation sector in the world. We have 435 million passengers. Delhi airport does 70 million. Mumbai does 55 million. But you can't open the civil aviation sector when you are in lockdown. That goes without saying. So the first point which we need clarity on, when are we ready? When will the government be ready to take a policy decision that domestic transportation, which involves essentially railways, civil aviation, metro transport. Delhi Metro carries 6.5 million passengers a day, 65 lakhs a day sometimes. When will we be ready to do that? My response to that is the formal decision on that remains to be taken. But we have meanwhile done something which is a stepping stone. We have at the very least 190,000 Indian citizens in different stages of distress or who are stranded outside. They want to come back. There are Indian citizens who want to leave because they have jobs in countries where they are normally resident. So within the system of lockdown, which started on 23rd March, we are opening the sector of civil aviation and railways, some special trains that have been run for migrant labor. When will we be able to move from this to the next stage? I think in taking that decision, the government will be guided by, first of all, a considered assessment on how the virus is behaving. Clearly, you don't want to open transit between two red zones. Equally, you cannot delay the opening indefinitely, because inevitably there are people, there are goods which need to be transported. Now the goods transportation has been opened up through trucks, through railway traffic. I think we will, depending on the behavior of the virus, and I keep saying this personally, sooner rather than later, we will be able to make a determination when domestic civil aviation can be opened in a slow and calibrated manner. How do you define slow and calibrated?
Okay.
I don't think even I have the answer. I think all of us will have to sit together. There are meetings taking place on this. We had to, I should say, work out SOPs, special operating procedures, health protocols. How will the airports be run? I think the airports have a good experience by now. They've been running evacuation flights for foreign nationals. They have been servicing the lifeline Udan flights, which have, we have already carried out 465 flights, carried out over 4.5 lakh kilometers. We've carried 836 tons. So there is experience in how to go about it in the changed environment. When we decide to open up, and I choose my words carefully, I think only a limited percentage, say 25% of domestic traffic will be opened up.
Okay, you're saying when we decide to open up, only a limited number of flights will be allowed. You believe that it could be a resumption of about 20 to 25% as far as domestic aviation is concerned. That is what you mean by the gradual and the calibrated reopening. It's also important, Mr. Puri, that you tell us that a call has not been taken on this. But sir, if I could ask you to give me a little more color on this resumption as and when it does happen. Now, we were just speaking with a whole bunch of MSMEs at this point in time, and their argument is that, look, you've asked us to restart operations, but without any public transportation, how are we supposed to do so? We don't have the means to provide transportation for hundreds or thousands of workers who we may employ at this point in time. Similarly, for the aviation sector, you said that you expect the resumption sooner rather than later. I mean, what is the data point? Because remember, when we went into the lockdown, sir, we were at a couple of hundred cases. Today, we are at 50,000 plus. So what is that data point that the government will look at to say that we can now be ready to restart?
Well, because we were able to take the hard decision on the lockdown early, and we were able to have a very effective, and if I may be permitted to use the word, a harsh lockdown. We have been able to control the number of cases, which, as you said, are in the vicinity of 50,000, total number of deaths, 1,600 or so. If you have a doubling rate of, say, 12 days or so, you are looking at a figure, and I think that is going to be a manageable figure. And that's my personal view, because if you look at the mortality rate outside, and you look at the rate here, our mortality rate is still way below 1%. All right, the infection is spreading, but if it doubles every 12 days, look, there comes a time, Shereen, when you will have to reluctantly come to the conclusion and accept that we must learn to live with the virus for a while. Because if you take the other extreme step, that you are in total lockdown till the virus disappears, you may be around waiting to reopen for a very long period of time, and then all the participants in your show, and I agree with most of them, when they say that unless we open up transportation, we cannot conduct our normal businesses. Look, that's a no-brainer. It doesn't require knowledge of rocket science to reach that conclusion. They're bang on target. But equally, we have to assume the obligation, whoever is the decision-making authority, that you need a judicious balance between the two. Therefore, I say we have already opened up economic activity. Agriculture is more or less fully functional. The industries which support agriculture, agricultural implements, transportation of essential goods, construction, where labor is in close proximity, that's opened up. I think the government is in the process of calibrating that reopening of economic activity. And if that is taking place reasonably well, then you come to the next step. Can you now formally decide that railways and civil aviation will now open up with a certain percentage of the scheduled traffic taking place between areas that are reasonably safe? I think we have to take that decision. I like the way you put it, Shereen. Can you give, you wanted some color on it. Well, I think the color I want on it is green. I mean, you can only do the transportation between green areas, because you don't want to be going into red areas, because the colors keep changing. You can have a pure green area. I keep talking to people in green areas many hours in a day, and they're apprehensive. They're apprehensive that when you open up interstate traffic, some people who are carrying the infection, who may be not showing the symptoms, they could come in and there's a problem. Of course, we have prepared the infrastructure, but I think we are reaching the stage where we will be able to take the decision. as to open up
Okay,
the transportation sector. I
that's
saw
important.
statements by my colleague. I've seen studies. I think we are slowly moving in that direction. I think you'll have to bear with us a little longer before the announcements are made.
Okay.
I can share with you, I was subjected to a fair amount of, social media mauling, if I may call it that. When are you bringing the stranded citizens back? Even now, we are preparing for 190,000, but today we've got plans only for 14,800 in 64 flights coming back. So it is the tip of the iceberg, but I think the sense of direction is very clear. We get 190,000 people back who are stranded outside. We send our nationals who are ordinarily resident abroad back to the countries if those countries are willing to take them. Many countries in the Middle East are not taking back nationals other than their own. And we simultaneously, in a concomitant manner, open up domestic civil aviation along with other forms of domestic transportation like the railways.
Okay. It's important that you said that the government is getting closer to taking a decision on reopening of public transportation, which includes aviation, though final date has not been arrived at as of today. And sir, it's trolling what you were referring to on social media. I think that is what you've had to go through in your own words. But let me address the issue of a support package for the aviation sector, sir. Today's report put out by CRISIL is talking about a revenue loss of about 25,000 crore rupees during the current financial year, not just airlines, but of course the airport infrastructure, the airports, and of course the ancillary businesses affiliated to that. Now, is a bailout package for the aviation sector a priority, given the fact that the government has many demands coming in from across sectors? And I would imagine the poor, the vulnerable, the MSMEs may be top priority at this point in time. So should the aviation industry have expectations, temper expectations, or have no expectations?
Let me start by saying that all the figures that you showed on your screen by a particular agency in terms of possible losses, and I'm choosing my words carefully, are based on certain assumptions. If the lockdown continues for a period longer than that assumption which has gone behind the figure will be not aligned. If, on the other hand, we open up quickly, then that figure may appear to be somewhat excessive. So I think it's a very difficult exercise to get into just now. All I can say is that the civil aviation sector, many of the airline operators were under strain even prior to the coronavirus coming on the scene. Many of them have borrowed money. I can tell you about the state airline, Air India, which is doing a phenomenal job in this evacuation, which started well before the lockdown, and which is carrying out this massive evacuation. We have to inject 500 to 600 crores every month to keep Air India afloat. That's why it is the subject of a privatization. Some of the other private carriers I know have borrowed money. The airport operators have their revenue down. The tourism industry, the hotel industry is all, suffering because of lack of business. At this point of time, I think those of us who are stakeholders in this industry, our effort should be that within the parameters of safety and within the parameters that caution allows, we should resume activity as soon as possible so that the industry can stand on its own feet. There will be a certain cost which will have to be paid because of these 3 months or so. I mean, we started on March 23rd, and I hope that we don't have a lockout extension for too long a period after this. But there will be economic disadvantage. There will be adverse consequence. We have to find a means of addressing the concerns of the stakeholder. It is not my job to look at issues like a package. My job is to look at what the strain the industry is suffering. And I can assure you, late at night, early in the morning, my secretary, we talk to the stakeholders across the board. The big ones, not so big ones, the small ones. We've been talking to the travel agents. We've been talking to the airport operators. And we're trying to find a way that we can take the interests of all the stakeholders along. We represent them. We become part of their representation to the finance ministry. But those decisions, Absolutely
Yes.
brilliant and on the spot. The finance minister has to take a call and also listen to what the demands from the other sectors are. It's not my job to anticipate what
No, I
decisions will be
understand,
taken.
sir. No, I understand that. I know that you cannot preempt what the finance minister or the prime minister may choose to do. But what is the recommendation that has gone from your ministry, sir, specifically as far as the aviation sector is concerned? What do you believe that needs to be done for this sector? What have you recommended to the finance minister? What she chooses to do is her prerogative. But what have you recommended?
I can tell you with full authority that we have made recommendations, but I am not at liberty to share those recommendations even with you. You're a highly respected anchor and I deeply respect you. But surely there is a process of functioning within the government. What I discuss in interministerial meetings, what my secretary discusses, I cannot share those recommendations. But by and large, the industry is aware of the fact that when we endorse their recommendation, sometimes not in entirety, sometimes in part, but they are also very, they're only seasoned players. They occasionally reach out to distinguished members of the fourth estate. They make them ask us questions. Do you agree with this recommendation? Do you think the force majeure clause should be utilized? Shereen, much that I would like to answer that question, I don't think I can do it through the medium of an interview.
No, I appreciate that, sir. But let me ask you this, Mr. Puri, and you're right about the fact that these decisions will be taken with the finance ministry's buy-in. But would it be fair to say that at this point in time, as you move towards this calibrated reopening, it will not be the international sector, the international routes that will be part of it? It will start with domestic and international maybe a few months down the line. Would it be fair to assume that?
I would not make any assumptions if we are confident on how the virus is behaving. I think it may be in our interest to open the domestic sector, certainly. Then depending on how our experience with the evacuation is, we also then think of opening the international sector. Look, we are already ferrying passengers in from the Middle East, from Dhaka, from Singh. So, but once the quarantine arrangements, once we know that the logistical arrangements for dealing with incoming traffic are in place, I don't want to put a figure how many weeks from now or how many numbers, but these are issues. At least we are starting with applying our minds to the whole issue of when, how we approach the domestic sector reopening.
Fair point. So I just want to get one clarification from you because this is important. It will be linked eventually to pricing and to fares as and when domestic operations resume. Has there been a decision taken by the ministry on whether the middle seat will have to be kept vacant? Industry has been representing, saying that that is an eyewash of an idea, that that's not really going to help. Has the aviation ministry taken a decision whether middle seats have to be kept vacant or not, as and when you resume?
Well, I don't know what the aviation ministry, but I have stuck my neck out on this issue, and I've said repeatedly that keeping the middle seat vacant is not an option, has not been an option for any airline anywhere in the world. The airlines already operate on very, very thin margins, and if you keep 1/3 of the aircraft empty, many of them may choose not to fly. So the whole thing may be counterproductive. So what you have to do is to take the other precaution. I saw a clarification by one of the European carriers, which is very interesting, which says that, look, we will use masks, we will disinfect the aircraft, the masks will have high quality filters, and we will ensure that we minimize risk as much as possible. But at the end of the day, there is a risk. But you cannot run an airline by keeping the middle seat vacant. That's been my view since this started. Now, whether you agree with it or not, whether the health authorities agree with it or not, each of us has to grapple with the issues.
I think the airlines will be happy to hear that, sir. The airlines will be happy to hear that, because they've been very clear and unequivocally so that there shouldn't be this rule of keeping the middle seat vacant. If I may ask you two quick questions related to the other portfolios that you're dealing with, sir. And I want to talk about urban development, because what this pandemic has done is also exacerbate the pain across the real estate sector. And now the worries are about commercial real estate as well, which was still now doing quite well. How worried are you about real estate? And what is the plan that the government has in mind to try and revive that sector, which has already been bleeding?
Shereen. Hello?
Yes, sir, go ahead.
No,
Yes, sir, can you hear
will
me?
try and answer those both questions very quickly, because I have to leave for another meeting. Shereen, we are acutely conscious of the strain that the construction industry was subjected to, both in the residential segment and commercial sector prior to COVID. We are in discussion with the industry. I have been talking to Naretco and Credai. I've been talking to the industry association. We are in touch with the finance ministry. And I think the steps that can be taken, you know, I can understand people say it's a harsh lockdown and the stimulus package but we don't compare ourselves to the kind of stimulus packages which, you know, the United States and other countries can give. So we are alive to the situation, and we will do the best we can under difficult circumstances. But let me tell you, I'm as confident on the civil aviation sector as the construction sector. I think we will come out of it both well. We have to ensure that in the interim, during the adverse effects of the lockdown, we minimize the disruption caused. That is the challenge right now. Otherwise, I'm confident.
All right, sir, I will let you go. I know you have another meeting to go to. Appreciate you joining us here with your take on aviation, real estate and more. Thanks very much for joining us here on CNBC-TV18. That's the Minister for Civil Aviation, also Urban Development, and the Minister of State for Commerce, Hardeep Puri, speaking to CNBC-TV18. Thanks very much, sir. We'll take a break. There's a lot more coming up. Don't go anywhere.